3 launches in 3 months. So we did Side Plus in September, Side in November, XX Vodka in December. We were insane, to be honest. It was really stupid, but we had 9 sites in London. All of them sold out, obviously. Traffic was crazy, hype was insane. Generally, merch doesn't sell these days because culture's changed, I think, away from a merch culture, fandom culture. The launch was a massive L because 9 stores, obviously all ghost kitchens, and delivery just couldn't handle it because you're reliant on a network. So
I was wondering, can you rank the brands by profit?
for sure. So
do you think they will become billionaires?
do I think they'll come? That's a really good question.
So you've overseen over $100 million worth of transactions with the Sidemen, correct?
We'll say dollars just to be safe, because dollars I'm pretty confident.
Indeed. Since you've joined them, you've basically created a bunch of businesses with them. And I just want to go over each one of them and understand what's the back end of it and how they were started and all of that, right? So maybe we can go one by one. First, I know it was before you started, but the Sidemen clothing, right? They started in 2014. Have you since joining them worked on that, or
not really? So Sidemen clothing. So the 2 businesses when we came in to work with the guys in 2021. So it's literally year 5 started yesterday. So we're into our 5th year.
Congrats.
Which is cool. Yeah, man. April Fool's Day as well, which is a fun day to start a business. But yeah, we're going into our 5th year now, or we're in our 5th year now. And the 2 businesses that pre-existed us was, of course, the YouTube business, so the actual content that the boys were making on by themselves. Sidemen Entertainment, we'll call it, and then Sidemen Clothing. So those were the 2. And so Sidemen Clothing, run by the incredible Matt, who was one of the boys, one of their friends from school, who, when they started out, kind of, things started to get a bit crazy. He came in to do packing for them in their house and was like just managing merch on the fly, like really running and gunning it, and has taken that from what was a very scrappy first merch business operation to try and wrangle that together into something meaningful now, into a proper business which is doing really well and has done well for the last 11 years, and it's incredible. So yeah, he's brilliant, super talented. So we don't work on that one. We do help a little bit, like when it comes to partnerships or some licensing opportunities, whether it's, I don't know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever, that type of thing.
Yeah,
we can support on and help them, but yeah, we don't run that business with them or work on that really.
Got it. For the Ninja Turtles one, how did that start? Basically, I'm curious.
So I'm pretty sure, this might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that one, there's been a couple of others, Hot Wheels, another one, came through a relationship with Mattel that either was on our side or on their side. But Mattel, big, obviously, IP factory, Barbie, Hot Wheels, all those great bits of IP, and they might even do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm not 100%, but still, they have a bunch of IP. They're always looking for ways in which they can make that IP better leveraged and get it into new audiences. Sidemen now have a ton of different avenues for brands to now kind of partner with on that front, right? So you can make like branded meals with sides, or you could do merch drops, etc. And this was one that was driven mainly by the merch collaboration. So they did a capsule together, did a concept shoot, launched it, activated it, Hot Wheels plus Sidemen across a bunch of different pieces, or Sidemen Clothing. And so yeah, that's how that came about. And obviously from a licensing perspective, Mattel were very happy because they got it to a different audience. The pieces look great. Response was brilliant online, and it becomes another moment for these brands that need to somehow, after decades of existence, have to constantly find new ways to make themselves relevant and exciting again. So yeah, it works for everyone, those kind of partnerships. I think we did a Mr. Men one as well, that was good. And yeah, Mr. Men, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Hot Wheels, SpongeBob. So yeah, tons.
No, that's great, and it's a good product market fit, I'm sure. Talking about product market fit, like, how do you come about to find those business ideas, right? So Side Plus was launched in September 2021. How did that start, basically? That business.
So Side Plus came about. Well, so I guess it's probably worth going back to the initial conversation with the boys around, like, why should we work together? What could we do together? How much value can we add, and where can this go? Because I think all of this, and it's something which still, a lot of people, a lot of talent, a lot of creators, a lot of teams don't prioritize, is that initial strategy. Because if you get that right, you don't really need to diverge from it too much over the years, I found. So that initial strategy was the first ever conversation we had with the guys, and it was a Zoom call, because it was just after COVID, or just during that kind of slight COVID cool off period where things were still very remote. And we spoke to them and said, look, you guys have all the potential in the world to build something way bigger and way more diversified than you've currently got. At the minute, you've got your merch business and you've got your YouTube business, but you've got no one on payroll. Maybe I think one person on payroll at the time. They had no infrastructure and operations, and nothing around their brand to take it from where it was into something that can scale. And you need people, you need focus to do that, and also you need, I think, external support to come in and say, from the outside looking in, where are you guys and where can you go? Because it's very difficult to look at yourself, especially when there's 7 of you. Who picks that up? Who runs with it? You've also got your individual stuff going on. So somebody needs to own that growth of the Sidemen, of the group brand, if you will. And so we came to them and said, look, these are all the different things that we think you could do incredibly well, ranging from, expanding into new territories to, finding an American agent to support an expansion, all the way through to them building brands, right? Like Sides. It wasn't called, well, it was called Sides then, but it was just a restaurant brand. It didn't have its definition around fried chicken or anything else. XX Vodka, which was initially, like obviously an alcohol brand, whatever that would become. We knew that the guys had those ideas anyway. Those two had come up before as, I'd be sick if we had a Sidemen restaurant or, a Sidemen alcohol. So those had already come up. Side Plus was one that hadn't come up, I don't think, or maybe it had, but had been pushed down. But, a membership club, what could a paywalled content business look like for them? Podcast, that was one separately. But then actually those ended up being bundled together. And then you have other ideas, things like hotels and trading cards and all sorts of stuff that becomes this big list of, you can kind of do anything if it's valuable, if it taps into your core theme of fun, of community, of like value to the audience. As long as you're giving value, people, I think, respond quite well. So we had this long list of things. It was like 15 different focus areas of growth that could take place. And then we sat back with them and sort of we had, in a very Sidemen way, a spreadsheet which put all of these different ideas down and then had all of their names across the top. And this was the first signal and this is the first learning of working with them. They're very democratic, they're very systems driven, and that's why we've been able to do all these different things together over the years. And it pumped out a number at the end, and the number was between 1 and 10 ranked for each of their names. So then each of the ideas had a number between 0 and 70 that then ranked and graded with a green that got darker as it went on. I think Josh made the spreadsheet. Definitely Josh, I think, made the spreadsheet. And it got darker, and then so you could see, okay, well these ones were like a 60 out of 70. This was a 53. This was a 40, and I think the mark of pass was 50. So I think that was like a pass mark for them. So you then had this list, and then from that list, we basically spent the last 5 years pretty much going through it, right? So the top 2 were restaurant and alcohol. Membership club was in there. I think trading cards was in there. I think podcast was in there, which now sits on the membership club Side Plus. There was a hotel in there, but all sorts of random stuff. But we've kind of gone through that list now, and most of those things have been done. Looking back, and since then, obviously, a whole world of other things have happened as well. But the fundamentals of, right, you get the mandate. They're all in agreement that these are things they want to do. We then, as management, go and make those things happen and then build around that mandate. I think that's the best way of doing it. It's a very process-driven, slightly cold and non-emotional form of management, because it's all done based on, is there consensus agreement? Yes, tick, go for it. And then we can go off and do it. And in that way, it works brilliantly well. And I think it's a way more practical way of doing things than, being reactive purely to inbox an opportunity, but also being non-strategic and not driven by consensus. Often you have management teams that are going in a different direction from the client, and ultimately everyone has to remember, every bit of value that comes off the back of whatever we do together, commercial value, strategic value, audience value, everything comes from them and their asset and their brand that they've built on the audience and the connection. So it's so important that feels right for them and that's driven by their consensus and agreement together. And then that's kind of the rationale. And then from there you get into the how do you build a restaurant? I don't know, like, no idea. How do you build an alcohol brand? So like we don't know, and then you work it out and you find partners and the best people in the world to help you do it.
Okay, so that's how it all started. I want to hear more about that, sort of how you started there. But first, I want to go more in depth into each business. So the Side Plus was the first business you started with them, if I'm understanding.
Yeah, so we were insane, to be honest. It was really stupid, but we did 3 launches in 3 months. So we did Side Plus in September.
Yeah.
Sides in November.
Yeah.
XX Vodka in December.
Oh, damn.
And it was insane, but it actually worked quite well. And it created this really nice momentum, but it was nuts, and it was very, very busy, because it's 3 different launches, 3 different sort of social brands to launch and set up, 3 different sort of shoots and campaigns to film and everything to manage. So yeah, it was a lot, but it all went well. It went really well, actually. And yeah, I think 2021 was an interesting time, right? Because the world was in a bit of a COVID days where everyone was excited and keen to engage again. Like everyone had been sort of trapped at home. So anything that provided good amounts of value and entertainment and was different, novel, even if it felt a bit novelty or not, it was attractive for people more at that time than anything else, because there was a glut of stuff, because you didn't have anything during COVID, right? Like everything was very pent up and digital. So anything physical, anything experiential, anything that pushed forward, I think people responded to really well. So at the time, all those brands got a lot of love and a lot of positive traction, and they built really quickly on social because everyone had been glued to their phones as well during that time. So it was a perfect storm, I think. Prime, another example of a brand that rode that storm really well, of course. Not that we're involved in Prime at all, but they rode that incredibly well, where there was so much energy and demand for things that were pushing culture forward and were exciting and dynamic, that it just caught that sort of that energy really well, I think.
Side Plus was basically at the right timing, right, for
Yeah,
that moment.
totally. And I think if you launch that today, it would be a very different sell you need to take out there, I think, with it.
Okay.
Interestingly, because I think culture's moved slightly away from that model in its sense, because it was the first of its kind. So it had that, in a way, that first mover risk. You're either sinks or swims, but because there was nothing else. But now, obviously, so much is driven by subscription businesses, so much is driven by sort of creator paywalls and so on, that I think you'd need to differentiate it slightly again now if it started, and the way you deliver it and stuff might be different too. But I think it worked incredibly well. It still works incredibly well. I've got a great audience on there, and the best thing for me with Side Plus is it's deepened the connection with the audience. You can tell it's like created this it's like a paywall, yes, but also it's this community wall where the people who are within it feel like they're part of something really special, and they're the closest in a way to the brand, which I think is also quite an interesting effect of these things.
For the viewers who don't know what's Side Plus, can you explain what's exactly in there?
Yeah, that would have been a good place for me to start. I apologize to anyone who's like, what is he talking about? Side Plus is the membership club for the Sidemen. That is a combination of, I would call it a membership club plus streaming service. So it's paywalled Sidemen exclusive content that has original formats, franchises. I'm literally a stone's throw away from the studio where everything's filmed. There are basically tons of original content on there, things that you can't say on YouTube, things that you can't necessarily do on YouTube in terms of length and format, because obviously the algorithm favors certain things, right, in the content, certain modes of packaging, everything else that needs to be quite exact. And so you can take more risks, you can have more creative fun, but also you can do things like, we did things like meet and greets with the Sidemen, access to exclusive merch drops, giveaways, all sorts of stuff wrapped into that. And it has really become this hub for the core Sidemen fan base around the world, and it's incredibly popular and people love it. And they, if you look at the App Store, it's all 5-star reviews. Like, it's a really solid product that people have connected to, because I think it's joined the dots of an audience, which is so hard to do, I think, through things like YouTube, even, right? Even though, yes, YouTube, you can build community, it's still not a kind of closed community in a sense. It's kind of open to everyone, and so therefore you get the bots, you get the trolls, you get a whole mix of people in the comment section. You get I guess you could argue, toxic and good, whereas in a membership club sort of space, it's your area to just keep the good. And I think that's been one of the best effects from the whole thing.
But I'm still curious, back to the spreadsheet, right? So all of them, they chose basically what they would like, what's their passion, what they think could drive the business, all those variables, right? But then, so you say you went by order in the rankings, but how do you know if it's actually a good idea, right? Like you mentioned Sidemen Hotel. Maybe there's a reason they didn't do it yet. I do think it would be insane. It would make sense. Like, you think UK, you think Sidemen, so you go to a Sidemen Hotel. I think it makes sense. But I mean, yeah, I'm curious. How do you think? How do you do the market research? How do you make sure it's the right idea for that creator amongst like hundreds of ideas that's possible?
I mean, I think it starts with, do they genuinely love the concept, and would they really engage with it on a personal level? And I think, again, this was years ago, so how we would do it now might be a little bit different. But at the time, it was based on, right, what do you guys love, and what would you want to do if you could do anything? Like, if you click your fingers and had anything under your brand, what would you have? And even though that's somewhat of an emotional, felt bit of analysis or felt bit of research, there's no right way of doing these things, and ultimately you can analyze something product market fit something so perfectly and it still doesn't work, right? So you never quite know. I
True.
think it starts with the sentiment of, do they back it? Do they believe in it? Is it something that they would want to engage with, and really do they love the concept, and does it kind of get them fired up? And then I think it's a case of testing the market a little bit to see what the appetite is from partners. And again, at the time, there weren't many partners out there. It feels like a long time ago. It's nearly half a decade ago, but it was very early in a sense for people from a corporate and institutional level to back this stuff. So like, you've not got many creator brands, you've not got much funding in the space externally, you've not got that many companies that are nimble enough to take bets on building development projects with you. So you have to try and find partners. So we initially, like with vodka, we spoke to a bunch of distilleries. It wasn't even vodka at the beginning, it was rum. I think we were going down, and it was like we started like reaching out to different distilleries for white labeling, right? And would anybody be open to a conversation? Again, still, it's at the time, those conversations weren't very easy, right? Like, you have to kind of work it, and they don't really get it. And like, what are the Sidemen? What is YouTubers? Like, what is this world? They don't really understand it. But I think through that process, you also get a sense of, is this actually going to work? Because most of the difficulty is finding partners that can capitalize something properly, who are experts and operate at a high enough level to really give you the confidence that you can build something meaningful in a space that you're a total novice in. Like, I know nothing about alcohol. I know a bit more now, but nothing really. I know nothing about, I don't even drink, right? I know nothing about fried chicken. I know a little bit now, but I don't know how. I would have no idea how to start a business in fried chicken. Of course not. Who does, right? A very small group of people in the world. So I think it's through the process of like, okay, this is an idea that we like. Let's try and see if it can land. That's also a process, and this is from a management perspective, where you speak to lots of different people. You try and get to the right partner, and you do a bit of speed dating, and you kind of present the idea. This is what we're looking for. Who would be interested to help? And now that's a lot easier, because there's almost the opposite thing. There's loads of people who want to do it, but very few ideas that I think can really work. At the time, it was more, you can do anything, but there's hardly anyone to help you do it. But we found the right partner, I think, especially with Sides and Vodka, hero brands who've been building this business with us. Obviously, it's not been smooth sailing in every way, and you get into these relationships. Basically, you marry a company when you do a JV, and you're on this journey with them. They're putting their funding in, you're putting your creativity in your team and your resource and the Sidemen's audience behind everything else. There's so much that goes both ways, but they're quite deep relationships, and they come with their ups and comes with their downs. But ultimately, yeah, like, we managed to get to people who could actually help. I mean, we even had it on Sides, right? I think I spoke about this on Colin Samir, I think, how we had this moment just before we met these guys, where we were about to sign. Literally, I still have the DocuSign link in my my email somewhere. It's obviously expired now, thank goodness. But it was for one site that we would run ourselves with a consultant chef who still works with the brand, but a consultant chef called Deck, and he was going to basically run and operate it, a ghost kitchen out of one site in Wapping or something, in South London. So I mean, it was a totally insane idea, because now looking back at what happened when we launched Sides, we had 9 sites in London, all of them sold out. Obviously, traffic was crazy, hype was insane, but Deliveroo couldn't handle the 9 sites, right? Because the demand was so heavy. So what would have happened with one? It would have been insane. Like, what would have made more sense, again, going back, you realize we went into ghost kitchens because that was all the rage in 2021. And it was, you can actually launch restaurants relatively easily and quickly, and comes with a lot of positives. It does, but a lot of negatives as well, because you're reliant on delivery and the infrastructure of delivery and all these apps and so on. And quality control can be a nightmare when you scale. Scaling's not very good with that model. What would have made more sense in hindsight is you launch a physical restaurant, and you just pack out a queue, and you have people queuing for it, and you can then manage the actual execution of the food at a high enough level. A ghost kitchen would have been a disaster for so many reasons. Again, you learn these things. Thankfully, we met Hero Brands and Robin and the team the day after we got that contract. So we didn't sign it. We held it. We met them the day after, and they were like, "Oh, we're actually looking to build brands with creators and with talent, and we're interested to talk to you guys. We run GDK, Jump Madonna Kebab, the fastest growing kebab brand, or one of the fastest growing food brands in the UK at the time. I think they were the number one in terms of growth. We can do it with you." So, okay, great. So then we pivoted, slowed down, spent another few months developing it with them properly. And that took Sides from being us trying to navigate it ourselves and not really knowing who to speak to then a proper, fully functioning business, which it now is. And again, has had its ups, had its downs, but has been consistently in a really good position, actually, as a business. And yes, like, the biggest challenge with all these things, though, and this is the problem constantly with these brands, is the capitalization and the funding for them needs to be so so big and so aggressive, because you're dealing with an audience expectation.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a potential that's so high, you need to charge them up, but then that obviously means you also need the people to execute on it, and you need the funding and the confidence in the funding, and those two things are getting there, but they're still not quite there yet, but they're close, I think, on that side.
Can you talk more about the deal you do with the operator, like creator operator? Like how does that look?
I mean, there's different ways to cut it and different ways to sort of to manage it. My personal preference is I like a JV in principle. Sometimes in practice, they're not as good, but in principle, they're good, because you go, okay, we're both aligned 50-50. You share the risk, you share the brand, and you know, one side is basically marketing and distribution on social and online, obviously with the Sidemen audience. What are we world class at? Content, audience, connection, community, right? So we run that bit, and then the partner runs the actual operations and the business itself. You're a partner fully 50-50. You both share in the risk, you share in the upside, you share in the downside. And in terms of on our side, it would be reputational downside and risk, on their side financial, operational. So both have risks in different capacities and different ways, but you come in it together, right? And you run the brand as a group, and you meet in the middle. And I think that's a good model. Where that can get difficult is obviously in things like deadlock. When you can't come to an agreement, so you need mechanics to deal with that. You need a really robust contract up front that can, I think, always give control back to the creator in the case that things fall apart, because you can't have somebody else running off with a creator's reputation and brand. So you need some of those mechanics in there, liquidation mechanics and so on, that just help to de-risk it on the chance that it fails and goes terribly wrong. But then I think, having it in that model is good, because everyone's incentivized. There's no, the minute you get out of the 50-50, you get into, well, I'm doing more, I'm doing less. Whereas 50-50, it's shared. So it's like the only model I think that really works when it comes to like long-term brand building with talent and with operator, as long as there's risk on both sides. Where 50-50 doesn't work is if the operator is not willing to put cash in. And if the creator has to put money in, I would say they shouldn't be a 50-50. It should be a more heavily split to whoever's going to put more of the risk in, if that makes sense. So if the creator is saying, well, actually, I want to invest in this, and I want a partner to help me, but I'm going to put the money up. Okay, cool. Well, maybe that's 75-25. You still need to keep enough for the partner to be incentivized. And I think creators are better at this than most, but you don't want to get to a position where you're kind of really trying to keep all the equity in something that's totally speculative and takes a lot of work and time. You want to leverage that value and that equity as a tool to incentivize and really make sure that you're, as a creator, thinking about incentivization for a partner. Why would anyone get out of bed for 10%, 5% if they're putting all this time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears into something? It's just never going to happen. So be more generous, I think, with the right people, and you get way more back, is what we've learned over the years.
And before getting into that, let me tell you about how the 1 of 10 strategy team can help you grow your channel much faster and make more money. Our team has directly worked with over 100 YouTubers to grow their channels by optimizing their content, focusing on the right strategies. So for example, here's a video idea, title, and thumbnail that we crafted for Mike Shake that ended up getting 22 million views and being his most popular video of all time. Another example is the content strategy we built for Callaway, helping him go from 0 to 70,000 subscribers and grow a 6-figure business on top of that. And those are only just 2 of many creators the team has worked with in the past 6 years. So if you're ready to take your channel to the next level in the next 90 days with daily support, video reviews, winning ideas, titles, and thumbnails, and even 2 calls per month to answer all your questions, head over to oneofthen.com/strategy to book a call. And so the operator basically puts in the funding to create this new venture. And does the creator put in funding as well in those 50-50, or is their part more the creative and marketing that they will give?
So so I think you don't want to, as a creator, be putting your money into ventures where you're not world class. Like, that's just something as well that I think is a good rule. If you're not world class at it, don't put your money in. Have a partner who's world class, put their money in, and then they're responsible for making sure that it's spent well and it's operating in the right way. For so many reasons, but one of the biggest ones is, if you don't really understand the business model, even if yes, you think you can really charge something, why would you put your money in? The other thing also is, in these heavier business models that are difficult, take a lot of cash, a lot of time, you can get trapped in spending in a way that isn't also that that secure, right? I mean, a lot of these businesses sink cash for a long time. They're not very profitable until you get to scale. You need to find partners that can help come in to expedite that process, but ultimately you might have to fund to get them off the ground. I mean, an alcohol business takes 5 to 10 million really to get it going, if not more. If you look at any of the big guys, Diageo and all of those, when they launch a new brand, they're saying 15 million is the budget to launch it, even from just pure marketing, never mind all the production, all the supply chain, everything else. So, you know, that's because alcohol, especially in the UK, is so heavily taxed, and you need such a heavy amount of cash just to get even product delivered to retailers or to bars, everything else, get it out of your bonded warehouses. The minute it leaves that warehouse, you get taxed on it. You have to find the money before it gets to your supply. So the more success you have, the more cash you're having to constantly churn. And then when you're dealing with retailers and you're dealing with operators or buyers, sorry, their payment terms might be 30 to 60 days. So you need invoice financing or whatever. So like the financing cash flow of a business like that is so intensive that you need a lot of money to pump it and get it going. And there are also things like stock, right? Bottling. It's so expensive. This is why it's like, if the Sidemen would, you know, would they even have any, like, they'd be drained of money if it was all their money going in, and we wouldn't be here. We'd be out of a job for sure, because we should be fired if we put their risk into something that, you know, they're not world class in, but also if the money was then sunk and there wasn't the return, because these things take a long time to really return. So yeah, I'm a big believer that creators should spend where they're world class. Don't spend where you're not world class. So spend on content, spend on content teams, spend on, you know, potentially on commercial and content execution, delivery for partners, maybe for brands, maybe if you have world class people in your orbit to help with that. But where you're world class, invest the most, without a doubt. And that's also, so one more thing I'll say actually on that front, because I missed out, merch. This is why merch often is actually a really bad thing to do.
And which is what a lot of creators do.
Yeah, it's like stage one, you get merch. Generally, merch doesn't sell these days because culture's changed, I think, away from a merch culture, fandom culture, to more of a value culture. What am I getting as value rather than how am I buying into somebody as a fan? Those things have changed because there's so many people to be fans of. There's so much saturation of talent. There's so much saturation of kind of IP that fandom becomes so weak across each individual one that you don't buy in the same way. Sidemen are an exception to that because they've been going for so long, in the same way that you have, you know, people who are fans of Prince or Bob Dylan or Michael Jackson or the Beatles. Sidemen are basically like that for this new era in a way, because they've kind of transcended to that legendary status where very few get. But for most people, they shouldn't do much. They shouldn't bother because it's just not a good use of their money. But also they get trapped in fulfillment, supply chains, you know, the headaches that come with manufacturers, especially if they're in China or wherever, and you can't speak the same language and you're trying to wrangle samples and shipping costs and horrible. Again, it's another business model that everyone just goes into because other people have done it, and it seems like the steps to take, but actually they suck. There's no value in merch for most creators or most people. Sidemen Clothing have survived and done well because they've pivoted into more of a brand that's not based in merch and fandom as much as it's based in the quality of the clothing, the price point, etc. So they've done well, but most don't. Most really fail. I'm
seeing it. But that's why you guys are creating brands of yourself on your own, right? You mentioned ups and downs. Let's say we go more specific on sides and the vodka. What are the ups and downs there?
Let's go one by one. Sides. So you come into a business like fried chicken. We have no idea about fried chicken. We're not world class in fried chicken. We don't know anything about restaurants. We've never done anything in food. Us or the Sidemen, anyone around us, right? So this is new, uncharted territory for us. And then we work with a partner who are very good at food, and they've been running a successful food brand that's, you know, worth tens of millions of pounds and is very successful. It's fastest growing in the country at the time, killing it on every metric. They really get it. They get food. So we have to obviously trust them, and we do trust them, and we all work together to build this thing. And I think with Sides, all of us, including them, you know, the downs, or the biggest down, twofold. One is the launch. The launch was a massive L because we launched 9 stores, obviously all ghost kitchens, but then delivery just couldn't handle it because you're reliant on a network. So because you couldn't control the fulfillment, you had people waiting 4 or 5 hours for food. I even got it because I could get it 4 or 5 hours for food. And then when it arrived, sometimes it was cold, ran out of chicken. It was just a mess because you've got like drivers who are trying to also manage the rest of the network, who have a strain with a bottleneck of hype around you and your brand. So it just doesn't work. But still, obviously, you know, enough people were happy with it, but it was just a massive L, really, because it was just based on a network that couldn't handle hype. And this is a big learning as well. Creators, the hype that talent and creators can drive is actually often at odds with a lot of these structures of business, like retail, and then also aggregators and delivery. They're just at odds. Like one can handle it, the other like hype and steady sales, hype and dispersed distribution, they don't work together. Hype works when you can completely control the delivery and the fulfillment, but if you can't, and you're reliant on a network that has to also satisfy others, it just doesn't work, right? And that's the same with
Right.
retailers, right? Like, you drive a lot of hype into a store for a launch, retailers then are unhappy because they have empty shelves, and then if they buy too much stock and it's not selling because the hype's died off and normal life resumes, which it will, because it always does, nothing's hot forever, it becomes normal life and has to sustain on its own. And that's where you build a really exciting brand over time, but it takes a while. Then you have a case where they buy at the top, they buy loads of stock, and then they're stuck with a bunch because they can't sell it. And then they don't have a high enough rate of sale to get excited because they're like, well, hold on a minute, we bought thinking it would be this and now it's this. Yeah, but the problem is their expectations are based on hype, not reality. Everything has to come back down. So anyway, I'll get into that. But that's with Sides, I think the biggest challenge or the biggest down was definitely the launch, and then also ghost kitchens and quality control were the two things. So we pivoted totally away from ghost kitchens, moved totally into physical stores because quality control was a nightmare, absolutely nightmare.
It seems that doesn't work, right? With Beastburger, with the whole suing thing, and then I guess here issues. So no ghost kitchen.
Correct.
Okay.
No Well, you know what? Ghost kitchens are okay if they are a small, tiny part of a bigger estate. They just don't work as the main business. And the problem is with Jimmy and what he did, and us was the same, was you go big on ghost kitchens and then you lose quality control by virtue of them being kitchens led by people who just simply won't care about the product in the way that you do, right? If you're a pizza shop and you've got a chicken shop in the back and you've got everything to do it in the back, for example, why would you care about the chicken when the pizza's going to make you more money and you're just doing that to make a bit more money on the side? So if you sign a deal with one of these the network that we had, for example, they're incentivized to scale, so they want to grow as big as you can. But to grow big and quick, you need to find basically sublet kitchens. Sublet kitchens come with the reality of not your own environment, not your own operator, really, not your own. So then you're in a position where people just don't care in the same way that you do, and there's no reputational risk. Well, Sides. So it's not my brand on the front line if you're that owner of that restaurant or whatever, right? So that was definitely a learning, and then moving away into physical stores. Then the second challenge, one of many, even random things, the war in Ukraine, right? Who would have thought the Ukraine conflict would have an impact on Sides, on the side? But it does. Chicken prices tripled because most of European chicken production is in Ukraine.
What?
So obviously, yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the vast.
That's why chicken is so expensive now in Spain.
Right. So the vast majority of European chicken comes from Ukraine. Who would have known? Who would have thought? But what that means is obviously conflict, rising costs, and then you've got obviously everything that went on with post-COVID inflation, all of the borrowing, the quantitative easing, all of the programs of furlough, and all the money that was spent by the government, or the money borrowed by the government from the central, everything else that went on during COVID, that just drastically triggered, like, obviously a global recession, right, and also global inflation. And we had that in the UK massively, where costs of everything just went through the roof. So it all just went crazy in terms of supply chain costs, in terms of staff costs, everything went through the roof. And then what does that do? Well, that creates a situation where it becomes very expensive to run, margins get tighter and tighter, and when you're in a franchise model, that becomes a strain on franchise partners. What does that then mean? It means profit goes down in the short term. And what does profit going down mean? It means you can't borrow as much money to then scale, so therefore your financing is stuck. And that's the other challenge that we had with some of the partners we've worked on. Some great operators and great partners, but because of this big macro climate and because of risky things being deprioritized in exchange for safe bets, you've got a situation where the financing is really hard. Like, they cannot finance it in the way that they maybe thought they could. And so then you slow down, and slowing down means, again, momentum. You're trying to get with Sides, for example, you're trying to get to 20 to 25 stores to build an estate that then almost grows on its own in a way, but you need to get to that level of scale for it to have that effect of being a network, and being a network that people recognize. If you look at Wingstop or any of these brands, they go like that. They really accelerate once they get to 20 to 25 stores. Happens with everyone. But before that, we're at 7. So before that, it's like you're grinding it out, gritting your teeth to get to 20, 25. Profit's not going to be high in every store. Some stores are way more profitable than others. Retail costs, like rent, is really high. Like, how do you get a profitable model? You have to go outside of London, but then obviously cost. So there's all these different variables that are kind of on that journey to go from 0 to 20 to 25. And that's the grunt work that you got to go on with partners. But obviously the challenge is yes, the promise might be good, the reality might be good, but it's really hard, stomach churning work to have losses on that journey up. Even if it's not in the total estate, even if the estate breaks even, a couple of losses, a bunch in profit, but the profit isn't as high as the loss. Like it's really stomach churning in terms of risk. And this is costing millions, right? It's like, you know, to set up a store, you're looking at $500,000 to $1 million to launch a store. So it's like serious money, which is
and that's
why
on the Sidemen side, right? Or
no, that's on our
operators?
franchise partners.
Got it.
So it's cost a lot to get in, and obviously what everyone's banking on, which will happen once you get to that scale, is it then all kicks on at a scaled level. But you need to get to scale first, which is going through losses, going through bits of profit, going through, you know, ups and downs. Can you stomach that financial hole that you have to invest and throw into to get it to that level? And that's the bit with Sides that is like, it's just the reality of and this is why, again, it's such a difficult business model, because to get to profit, high profit, you need scale. To get to scale, you need loss and investment to really get over that curve. And then it's like a J curve that goes down then up. And you need, and we're kind of at that point where we need to keep going and pushing forward to get to 2025. And yeah, that's like the challenge with Sides for sure, is just that the kind of brutal financing need of a restaurant chain franchise, which is just sizable. And then, but then the gold is, once you get over that other side and you get to scale and it starts to really kick on, then you get to huge valuations, and you know, the business is incredibly exciting from an investment perspective, from an exit perspective, etc. Wingstop in the UK, Lemon Pepper Holdings, who bought the franchise, I think 8 or 9 years ago, they recently sold it for 300 million, which is incredible, right? And that shows that, I think it was 300 or 400 mil, but it shows what can happen when you get to 50 stores, 80 stores. But it's a journey. It's a journey.
How many locations you guys have?
So we're 7. We're about to get another 2 or 3. We've got quite, to be honest, quite a lot coming, but it's been a pivot because, you know, we had to relook at financing and some of the capitalization elements. So that's been the bit that slowed things down. But yeah, we're looking at about another 3 or 4 this year, I think, if not more. The March to 20.
Yeah, because I think everyone knows restaurant business is really harsh with really thin profit margins, and that's why at scale is how you can go to the next level.
Totally, man. And then it's money and time.
How long did it take from idea to execute to launch for Sides?
From idea to launch on Sides, it was like 4 months or something.
Oh my god! Okay,
4 or 5 months. Everything. What I've learned is we started with the guys in April. Yeah. And Sides launched in December.
Okay, yeah, and I guess the vodka and the Side Plus all back to back, all from that same time frame.
Yeah, okay, so April to, and Sides was November, so April to November, and that was also with the pivot of nearly going out there on our own and then stopping that and then going with Hero. So that was like slowed down. Oh man, headache. I wake up in the night sometimes shivering at the thought of what that restaurant would have been and how much we would just be in the mud. It'd be terrible.
That's why you're there.
That's why you're there. That's it. That is it.
Quick break from the pod to tell you about 1of10.com, a powerful tool to help you grow faster on YouTube. Check this out. Using 1of10, this creator took inspiration from this viral idea and combined it with this thumbnail concept. And the result? Her most viewed video with more than 2 million views. By focusing on the right idea, title, and thumbnail, you're setting your videos up to go viral. 1of10 includes a suite of tools specifically designed to highlight overperforming videos and spark inspiration to find your next viral idea in just minutes. And the best part? With code POD50, you'll get 50% off for life. That means just one video with 25,000 views can cover an entire year's cost. So if you want to grow your channel faster, head over to 1of10.com. Now back to the pod.
And I'm curious about the vodka part. So you said it went from potentially being rum to then vodka. And what are the ups and downs in the alcohol world?
Yeah. So alcohol. So yeah, it was initially, we were looking at different spirits and different options, and rum was one that was floated and a couple of others. We were sort of exploring that early doors, like, you know, what would be the best thing to go into. Again, had a bunch of different conversations with a bunch of distilleries and companies that had no idea about YouTube and didn't know what we were up to, but you know, they were sort of early conversations that at least helped us to sort of assess like what the market is and what's going on. And what we found, I think, with alcohol is that, again, we had no idea about the brutal reality of the business and the intensive costs and retail dynamics and everything else we didn't know, but it gave us insight that, like, you know, it was not as, to find the right partner was going to be a bit of a ride. But then we found through Hero, who we spoke to obviously around Sides, they had another part of their business called United Wholesale, and United Wholesale is a what the biggest wholesalers in Scotland, right? So they do huge sales to bars and pubs and everything else, and they were keen to build their own brand. So that conversation was a separate one, but also was like, oh, okay, this could time quite well. We're looking to launch our own alcohol. We have no idea really where to start. We're working on partners. We're trying to assess the market, but we don't really know who to go to. And actually, they had already started developing some products and doing some sample testing and everything else. So again, decent way in where you can go, right, you guys are slightly on your way. You've kind of at least signaled that you're intending to do something here, and you've also started the process to at least assess like bottle shapes and all this sort of stuff. So then we said, okay, well, let's talk to them and see if there's a world where that those two things can come together, and they did. So yeah, that's how XAX came about. They sort of had some initial development. We then, and the boys came in and then added their flair and their sort of their development into it, and then that created this product which we have. And I think the challenges with XAX have been many. I think one of them has been the retail reality, which is that retail is a very difficult landscape to enter when you are a new brand with a lot of hype, because hype and retail doesn't work. Hype also cools off, novelty wears off, so therefore you have to sustain on your own, and you can't sustain on your own in retail unless retailers are seeing you as a brand that has to grow because the reality is you need to grow over the long term, and it's very difficult to do that if the retail expectations are super crazy hype that's just unrealistic, and you're trying to, and you can build hype, but then you have to come back down to earth and then build a brand that reaches people way outside of the audience. So that was definitely one of the challenges with XX, was just navigating that retail expectation piece. Another one of the sort of challenges with XX was just around advertising, what you can and can't do. As I said, tax, cash flow, like having to find millions of pounds to just get bottles to retailers, things like that, which is just insane. But you have to find you have to have such a heavy amount of cash and invest so much in that it becomes a very big drain of a business. This again about that long-term exit and that potential for 5-10 years really, but it's a slow burner business where you can make a lot of mistakes. You can make a lot of the wrong moves. You can also make some really good moves. The cans, everything else that's come about, the flavors, etc. But yeah, it's a total journey of a business, that one. And alcohol is hard. It's a hard grafting business, which I think is I wouldn't recommend it as an industry to go into, because again, if you're a creator, you've got the world at your fingertips. You've got endless options. Alcohol is probably as difficult really as it gets in terms of regulation, taxation, in terms of age, like advertising, all sorts. It's as, and for good reason in a lot of ways, but it's as chokeholded as you could imagine as an industry, which is why if you can surpass all of that, you get crazy valuations. If you can surpass all of that, you get and you can build a market share. It's such an achievement that the valuations and the multipliers are incredibly high, because very few people can do it.
I always wondered though, why alcohol for the audience that Sidemen has, right? Which is younger audience in general.
Yeah,
so
well, I think
curious how,
for sure,
why that.
I mean, as you can imagine, right? This was like one of the first questions that they had. I think because the audience has grown up. So actually, if you look at the numbers, the audience is 95%, I'm pretty sure 18 to 30.
Okay.
And that's quite consistent. Not obviously on YouTube. Yes, you can fake your account and you can have your 18 or whatever. But this is across all the platforms as well. So it's consistently older. And yes, they have a younger contingent who have come through by virtue of being on YouTube and being on social and being in places where younger audiences are consuming. But actually, their biggest base. We wouldn't have done it if the audience was a younger audience, and legally you can't even do it if your audience is younger. We had a bunch of things, with the ASA, for example, the Advertising Standards Agency, which is a gift and a curse, and I think is great in some ways, but also ridiculous and silly in other ways. And I've been on record saying I think some of their rules are just dumb around influencers and creators, and I'm happy to speak to them about why, and that's a whole other thing. But they're like the regulatory body of advertising here in the UK. And yeah, I think they like the what was I saying? Yeah, the age range. So we've had challenges around that, and the numbers are so strong in favor of it being an older audience that we felt comfortable building the brand in the first place, but also advertising the brand, because you wouldn't want to do that. The Sidemen, have a big duty of care to their audience and are very well aware of that if the audience was young. But the reality is they're all in their late 20s, early 30s, and a lot of their audience have grown up with them. The biggest chunk of the audience were the same age as them when they were watching YouTube, when they were making videos on YouTube, if that makes sense, between 2013 and today.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah,
Wow.
so like they were 15, 16, now they're 25, 26 or whatever it is. So yeah, it's not neglecting that growth of the audience and providing products which can allow them to also enjoy themselves and experience things that they want as an older audience, right?
So those were the launches initially, right? But then
Yeah.
you got Sidecards, Best Cereal. How was those launches?
Yeah. So that was 2023. We did those two, I believe. I mean, yeah. Sidecards came about. We called them Sidecards. It's just like a loose brand, right? But it wasn't really a brand, and it isn't a separate business. But Sidecards came about through Tops, now owned by Fanatics. Tops Cards, obviously, everyone probably knows. They reached out and were like, "Look, we'd love to look at something with you guys." And what started off as a sort of Sidemen entry into trading cards in quite a loose way became one of their most successful launches and was did very well. And that then expanded from the one, you went on eBay, you had these secondary cards reselling at a crazy value, like people were really getting behind it. And that then went from that to then a tight Sidemen 10 years pack, which was the second drop with them. And then that also extended into Tops now for the charity match, so like more kind of immediate cards, which just recently did with for the first time with other creators outside of the 7 guys as well, which was really good. So I had Mr. Beast, Kai, and a few others. So that was great, and it went down really well. But yeah, I think it's more Sidecards is like a loose category for trading cards, Sidemen trading cards and creator trading cards really now, because it's not just Sidemen, with the 2 drops and then also the charity match stuff. And yeah, I mean, for me, that was a natural fit on a personal level. I just think Tops and the Sidemen world are so connected. A lot of the Sidemen are fans of Tops, collect Tops. They're into that world anyway. So, these things don't make crazy amounts of money at all. They're not commercially the best things in the world. They're, they're good, but they're not insane. They're not like, it's probably as good as one might think, but they're more amazing pieces on a personal level for fans of that world, as the boys are, to say, oh, we have our own trading cards, and I have my own graded cards from Tops. It's just a cool thing, and I think that's part of this whole thing as well, right? For us, it's how do we just help them to live out their own dreams and their own sort of fun challenges and things that they'd like to do, like to have their own trading card. That's a fun thing to do, and thankfully we're able to, through Tops, facilitate that. And that was actually initially one of the first ideas in the sheet before they even reached out. So again, it just kind of worked really well and came together.
Okay.
Oh, and then Best.
Yes.
And then Best.
That was last year, right?
It was 2024.
Yeah.
In February or March. No, March, I think, 24.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Best came about, interestingly, from Tesco's, who reached out to us and said, look, we'd love for you guys. So obviously we're working with them on vodka, and they'd seen the impact. We did a big Tesco run-in of trading cards. They also saw the impact. And they basically just said to us, look, cereal is such an undisrupted market that is so boring.
That is true.
And they said to us, and there's reasons for that, which we now know. But they said to us, look, you guys could do something really interesting in this space, and we'd love to support something if you had any ideas. So we spoke to the guys and said, look, well, actually, there are so many benefits of doing something in cereal. Number one, you can, give back to kids who need breakfast, right? There are charities that you can support as a result of the work. We work with Magic Breakfast, who provide kids across the country with free breakfast, right? So you can do something really good from a charity perspective, give a portion of profits to charity that help just to make it more circular and more purposeful at the heart, of course, which is important for these things, best you can. And then also with cereal, it can reach a different audience. You've got alcohol, which obviously targets an older audience. Cereal targets a younger audience, slightly younger audience, more of a teen audience, I'd say, than sort of pure like kids, but also kids as well. Teens primary, kids secondary, I'd say, or sort of, because that's really, I think, the more cereal audience for Best. And then you've got a retailer market that's saying that this is an undisrupted space. So we go, okay, well, it's another string to the bow. It provides breakfast as a category. You've got food, you've got breakfast, you've got alcohol. So you kind of got all the whole day, right? You've got like the morning, you've got like lunch, and then you've got the party at the end, right? Or whatever it might be, lunch and then the party at the end. So you've got all three. And well, actually, you know what? That makes sense as a kind of a final category that could leverage the retail relationships we have, leverage the ability we have to launch things, and just create something which is, different, that hits a different market, but also, you know, something that the guys will love because they're all massive into cereal as well. So again, going that filter of, do you guys love it? Is it something that you really love? And they all were like, yeah. So that was the sort of start for Best. And then, you know, we launched it in a way that was, I think, quite just different and noisy and exciting. And again, social changed a lot since we launched the first brand. So we had to think about doing it in a different way. You know, we leveraged, I think, quite fun, big ad creative. We worked with big talent, people like Luke Littler and Sketch. We've done 2 big campaigns with each of those guys, which have gone down really well. And then also collaboration with different IP. So we did the collaboration with Venom, did the collaboration with Squid Game for Netflix. So, and those have, again, really worked and have opened up. So I think our strategy for Best has been, you know, how do we go hard on collaboration and leveraging IP? How do we go hard on big, noisy social moments to reinvigorate the brand? And then how do we provide, you know, a product that's better for you pragmatically, whilst also being delicious, and have options which are more indulgent and options which are healthier? So we provide more of that, I guess, pragmatic, healthy approach, rather than being, you know, healthy in a way that's unaffordable, which is often part of the challenge, but then also being aware that not everyone wants health all the time. So you always have that kind of moderation for products, rather than saying you want to be ultra healthy or you want to be ultra unhealthy. You want to have that mean that looks after people, but also provides them with options. And I think and have good quality at the heart of it, which is also the case for Sides, case for Best as well. So I think it's, I mean, it sold 1 million boxes in the first 6 months. One of the biggest, you know, performers in the Tesco estate across the category when it launched there. Like really solid signs of a brand that's going to work. And actually we've, you know, had really great relationships, good conversations across the world now with partners. Feedback on the taste is amazing. Squid Game is selling really well in Morrison's. Like, people are really loving it and buying into it as, again, a new player. So I think, again, with these things, we're used to everything being super fast, super digital, super scalable. Like, these things take time because it's about relationship. It's about testing, improving, iterating, trying, going again. They're laborious models, but also with Best, what we learned was, again, on the manufacturing side, you know, give that to a partner who is the best in class. And so Mornflake, who make the cereal itself, they've been running since the 1600s. We're not competing with that. I think it's 1685 they were founded, and they've been running an oat mill since 1685. They understand oats better than anybody in the world. So that's the sort of person you want working with you, because then you cut out all of that headache on supply chain, cut out all of that headache on manufacturing and all that stuff, which, yes, can provide huge amounts of value if you get it right and you dig deep and you invest. But again, in our world, that's not where the Sidemen are world class. The Sidemen are not world class at product. They're world class at content. So you need to find the best product people to help you and a brand you bring into the mix become world class, and bring your expertise of content, marketing, distribution to world class product developers and creators. That's the key. And then it's not thinking that it's worth, because it would be insane to build your own supply chains, run your own manufacturing for brands that, in a sense, are speculative because they're away from your core competence, your core area. So they rely on your partner, and that, again, can breed incredible fruits, but you're not in control of it. So you shouldn't invest your whole time and energy into running the kind of the detail of those businesses when it's just not your area.
So what I'm hearing is a lot of what made all those brands killing it with the Sidemen is finding the right operator, right? I'm curious, what's the red flag? What are the criterias to make sure you have the right operator?
Yeah. So I think, looking back, I would say, like, real world expertise at a high level. Like, do they know what they're doing in this specific category, and do they do it at the best and the biggest level, or have they got experience doing it at a really high level? So I think that's like the number one, right? It's like, you might like them, whatever else, but if they haven't gone and done this, you want to find somebody who's trodden the path before, who's smashed it out the park, who knows exactly how to take this from A to B. In the same way you'd hire a CEO, right? You don't want a CEO who's learning on the job. You want somebody to come and run your businesses who's done it before, because they know the blueprint of, right, I've been from here to here, and we're going to do that again. Yeah. And these are the steps to take. That's what you want. And I think you want that in your partner, because you're not going to be able to afford a CEO to do that for you. So you need them to be your CEO, your CFO, your COO, etc. That's what you're looking for in a partner. So I think it's that. I think it's finding a partner whose expectations are managed well. I think that's also key. They understand the nuances of the creator world, that, you know, just because somebody with an audience posts about something, it doesn't mean that it's going to fly and become, you know, $1 billion business overnight. It's going to take a long time. You're going to have to go through the same motions as any other brand. You're just getting an accelerator at the start. It doesn't mean that you're not going to dip. You will. Every brand dips. Hype is a killer, actually, as we said. hype is a total killer of retail confidence and cadence because it totally disrupts their expectation. It's terrible. It's actually probably in hindsight, you don't want to drive hype. In hindsight, you don't really want to drive hype for these brands unless you can control the fulfillment, because not in retail anyway. You want to, what I would say looking back is you want to go control the scarcity for as long as you can, if you can. With our products, you couldn't really, like you could maybe with vodka. Sides, you can't. There's no way you're controlling the scarcity. Best, you kind of can't, if you, because it's the product's quite big and it's laborious to manage and fulfill. You could maybe, but it's also not the product that we're trying to build off hype, right? Whereas the others a bit more at the time in 2021 in that culture, which was a bit more of a hype culture, I think, where everything was novelty and new, and people were really getting behind the way that people just aren't doing now. Culture's changed, so you have to build things in a more steady way. But yeah, I think finding great operators who have, you know, enough experience at the top of whatever they're doing, who are well funded, who have proper money behind them, and who if they're making commitments, you can see that they have the money to really follow through on those commitments. Also, I think somebody who understands the expectation gap that will exist in the market, but also knows the nuances of creators, which are they're not going to add as much value as you think. Probably, if you're from an old school where you go, okay, well, they've got 10 million followers, you know, they're going to convert 10% of that, 1 million people, they're all going to buy, they're all going to go. At any level, that's insane. So you need to have, but a lot of people still think like that.
Right.
So you need to make sure that they're aware that no, this will add credibility, it'll add content competence, it'll add entertainment factor, it'll drive down cost per acquisition on ads, it will increase your chance of collaboration with other people because they'll be probably fans of whoever's behind it. It will allow you to speak and act in a different way. So it provides your brand with a DNA that's different, but it won't provide your brand success. And actually, the more reliant you are on the creator, the less successful, I believe, it will be in the long run. So you want to leverage the creator to help you get a better DNA for the brand, but to not be the whole thing, and to definitely not be the almost the de facto marketing, because that's the other problem. When people look at the creator as the marketing, I think they've already in their minds lost if they don't pivot out of that mindset quite quickly. The creator gives you all those elements of DNA and value, but the value is softer than them being the marketing channel. And if they are the marketing channel, you've lost. Especially now with content being so untargeted on organic, but very targeted on paid. Like organic is only going to get you so far. Paid is going to take you most of the way. So you need to have people who can help you get that first kickoff, validate it, but on a much lower conversion. And then you leverage their image, I believe, for paid. To really push ads and to drive ads that can convert and you can properly track and manage. That's the golden combination, I think.
Yeah, lower CAC. I didn't think of that. That makes sense.
And you know what's interesting? A lot of brands are spending with creators in order to drive down CAC on then the paid that they put on top. So pay an amount for a campaign, but then the value is more usage because they want to take those ads and run ads on them, and that's how they drive down their CAC, and that's how they increase their the value back from the campaign. That's how they're measuring it these days, more and more.
I was wondering, can you rank all the brands by profit?
Yeah, so for sure. So Side Plus, for sure, number one. Digital business, perfect business model, 80-90% margin.
How much you said?
80 to 90% margin.
80 to 90%. Okay, yeah.
Digital,
makes sense. Digital, yeah.
Why would you? So easily the most profitable. Probably Sidemen Entertainment or Sidemen Content, second most profitable because they're more labor intensive in terms of the shoot scale. It's kind of endless scale, but those can. But still very highly profitable because they're still digital at the end of the day, even though they're production. But, then upside the fund, because again, the fund is, we didn't even talk about that, but that's a VC fund that we created with the guys leveraging some of their capital, external capital. But that, obviously, profit you don't know until 10 years down the line, really, because you need to see the fruits and the results. But, I think that's already showing really good signs, so we'll see. But again, to be honest, too early to tell. But I think that one has a lot of upside. Potential, so but there's a lot of potential because of the nature of the businesses we get access to, but also but again, you never know with VC really until it materializes, but potential. And then on the consumer brand side, I would say it's hard because Sides best XIX, I would say.
Okay, got it.
Because Sides is higher average purchase, still not the most profitable because of all the things that get stripped out, franchise, etc. Right, in terms of a food business, but still a good revenue. Sides makes good revenue. It's just it gets cut down. So much for scale. Obviously. Best does good revenue as well. Problem with Best slightly is it's just such a cheap product that the margins aren't good enough to make like crazy profit. But then the point is you keep a really lean model and you scale out volume, and then the volume drives the value of the brand when it's plugged in. So, but still, the nature of that business, cereal, is a £2 box, right?
Yeah.
You're never going to make crazy profit on a £2 box, but still, it's the revenue's good and the scale's there. And then XX, the tax regulations, the
Right. Oh, yeah.
duty, everything else is just such a killer. And obviously the cash flow required and the stocks, it just becomes really difficult to make good profit on a business like that, unless again you hit super scale. But you're still having to constantly look at that balance sheet of how much has gone in to pump that to the level that you need it to be. But I think those would be that'd be my ranking, I'd say. But again, you come back, it's like digital businesses, they just win every time. So why are we all going into these business models that are very like, and yes, I'm really glad we've done them, we've learned so much, and we've built really good businesses, but they're so much harder. And not that anything should be easy, right? But they're just, I think for me, it's more the financial commitment that you need now. The learning is you need millions to do these things. Like you need real financing, and it sounds obvious, but we're learning on the job as everyone else is, right? You need real capital to pump these things to the level that you want them to be to make serious money, which is obvious to anyone, but it's still in practice. You go, how much really? And then you realize, whoa, okay, that's that much.
I mean, with that said, is Sidemen Hotel still a potential, or what's the thought?
Possible.
There?
I mean, the thing with that one, it's I think it's a thing of where can we be world class, and where's the partners? And I think hotels as an industry is more behind than others to understand some of this stuff. It's
so
sort of
that's where
CPG.
The opportunity is.
Exactly, and that's why we've got a concept. We've developed out a lot. We were quite close, but it just, I think the sort of scale of the partner wasn't there to justify with again going through that checklist of things. But if we could, I'm really interested still to try and assess if there's a partner for that. I don't know whether or not the boys would want to do it anymore, but I think again a lot of this hinges on they were very passionate about the idea. If there's a right partner with the right commitment to it, then you go, okay, well, it could be interesting. So I still think it has tons of legs, because travel, hotels is so undisrupted, and the Sidemen and the energy that the boys could bring to that market would be amazing, I think. But it's just finding the right partner.
And so being bullish on digital, is that what we're going to see more of from the brands of Sidemen? Like, I don't know, video games or other digital stuff? Or
I mean, I think for the boys, I think where they're at is they've got these brands and growing a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money's gone in to them. I think I can't see them launching anything else. Really, I think they're focused on they've already got a lot, like more than most would ever have. It's like they've already got a lot. So I think it's about us and them focusing on building these out as best we can.
Got it.
The fund obviously is really exciting because that adds a whole nother layer of potential in terms of return and everything else, if that can really kick on, which I think it also will, if the thesis is proven, which hopefully, but let's see. And then of course the content business is the core, always will be.
Yeah, of course.
Always was. So as long as that keeps going, as long as they're happy in their filming and their creativity, things like Netflix are amazing additions to that as new new outposts for content, new partnerships with people like that are great. And so I think more content at a higher level, more bigger and better productions, things like Side Plus, for sure, and then the brands building as best they can within their challenged macro climates to scale as well as they can. I think that's the palette. But I can't see anything else. For all of our sakes, I can't see anything else.
Do you think they will become billionaires?
Do I think they'll come? That's a really good question. I mean, individually, they'd have to. That would be obscene from the side. I mean,
let's say the business.
Could the Sidemen Group Co be valued at $1 billion? There's a route to that for sure. There's definitely a route to that. The challenge is you'd need to get it really well funded to scale it. Could it grow to organically $1 billion? Possibly in 5 to 10 years, but that would take a long time. Maybe. But I think there's a moment in time where, with the right capital going into that, sort of like Do Perfect recently did their raise, $100 million. invest into that to try and get it.
Good golf. Yeah.
Good golf did 45, yeah. So there's a few examples of creators who are starting to. Mr. Beast apparently he's looking at 4 billion. I think it was.
Sour Strip was sold for $50 million, and he had, I mean, not as huge audience, right?
No, I saw that, but again, I don't know who the partner is on that, but they did an amazing job. I saw that whole journey, killed it. And again, it's well though. The other thing, if we were in America, I'd be saying you should be doing that organically. In the UK, it's very different.
True.
It's just different market, different size, different ambition, different levels of investment. So like if the Sidemen were in America right now, I think they would already be billionaires. To be honest.
Okay, I see.
Both from like the amount the brand spend, but also the scale of retail. Like a test in America is bigger than the whole of the UK, retail market. Do you know what I mean? When the brand when Walmart does a test, you're hitting 50 million people. I don't know, but it's just what I'm saying. It's a very different market. But I think that there's a route to it, but it requires also. I think it's also like, do they want that, and do they want the things that come with that? Because like you have investors that pump big amounts of capital in. If you really take the big swing, that comes with a cost. So those are the questions that aren't for me to answer, and I don't know the answer to. But I think there is a route to it. But yeah, let's see, man. Let's see. It's gonna be whatever happens next. As I've always found with the boys and with everything that they do, you never know. But something's coming.
Yeah, opportunities will be there for sure.
They don't know. Route.
Yeah,
but we'll see. We'll see.
You're the man to lead that, I'm sure.
Oh, mate.
Outside of Sidemen, who do you think will be the next creator billionaire outside of Mr. Beast as well?
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, who do I think will be the next creator billionaire? That's a really good question. Maybe Jake Paul.
Oh, okay. I didn't think of
because he's not. The reasons being, I think he's well funded. Really well funded. He's got his fund, and they invested, I think, 15 or something million into W, and I think that gives it enough money to kick it off properly in terms of distribution. That gives it a shot, because that's a good example. They funded that brand so heavily that it's got, I think, and in the biggest market in the world, where I think it has a shot at really winning, because you can really nail distribution, you can nail fulfillment, you can nail marketing around it, in-store marketing, all the kind of grunt work marketing that you need to do that's away from socials, which is actually in retail more important than social, is building the product, obviously, but also just the grunt work. So I think I could see Jake Paul being one. Speed, I think has the route to it without a doubt, because I think his audience is so connected and his theme is so strong in sport. And when you have a theme or a genre, Sidemen don't have a genre as such, really. So they kind of straddle genres. Mr. Beast doesn't really have a genre, so he straddles. But when you have a genre, your commercial potential just goes through the roof.
That was so smart to be the football guy.
It's football, but also football and America. Football's a growing market. So you're just and I don't think it was intentional or strategic from a business perspective. I think it was just natural. But when you've got, I mean, maybe that's not giving him enough credit.
Maybe not initially, but then after.
No, it seemed it seemed really organic, right?
Yeah.
Rather than like planned out. But obviously, what that's done is it means that who is any brand going to look to help connect America to football on a global level? Speed. Who are they going to look to connect football with America in Europe? Probably the Sidemen. So you've got those two things. So that's why like the World Cup's really exciting next year in America. Because that's going to be like, I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Speed's the face of the whole thing, or like one of the big people, because he's built up this foundation, right? And actually, from a commercial perspective, he has such an opportunity to become the football guy. I mean, he already is, but to become the face of football internationally from a content perspective, he kind of already is. But to be backed and commercially supported to do that, which might not make him a billionaire, but can make him pretty freaking big. And then I think off the back of that, he has the opportunity, if he expands into the right business models and scales.
What do you think would be the right business for him to launch?
Double down on I would always say double down on where you're world class. He's world class at streaming and content. How can he have his own production company, for example? How can he get into long form? He talked about this, I think, on the Yushai. John Yushai is amazing. Yeah. I'm sure you know, but I think he talked about it on this, getting into produced videos rather than just streaming. Hard to do when you're a streamer, but that for me, if he can get into like big production and leverage his YouTube to launch like big shows, big formats, and then have a ladder to then selling this formats into the big players, but really leverage IP. He could kill it. Also scripted. He could do amazing as an actor. I think he could really win in like Hollywood as well.
Right, for sure. But what about CPG for him?
Well, see, I wouldn't prioritize it.
Really?
No. I prioritize content and then potentially digital, like a paywalled sort of subscription or membership that goes a bit deeper. I would start with content at a high level and then paywall membership. And then I would get into, and for bonus, for like extra bigger productions and content, and have a ladder up into the bigger streamers. And then I would prioritize, he should become the next The Rock, right? You know, wrestling, WWE would be amazing. I think for him, because of the theme and the commercial, it's not going to be in CPG in the same way. Merch isn't going to do, like, it won't be the thing that makes him Billy. I think it will actually be building, he's so famous individually and so such a character. It's building the personal brand to such a degree that for 10 years time, he is The Rock. And then, because I even think like The Rock, right? Yes, he's got Terramana and stuff now, but they've built out over such a long time. Maybe he could launch a drinks, but I don't know. Maybe he could launch a soft drink or something. I don't know. Maybe, but again, it's like, I wouldn't be focused there, actually. I'd be focused on content and playing where you're world. That's the learning of the last 5 years, I think, for us anyway, is double, triple down on where you're world class, which is what the Sidemen have done, really. But double, triple down on where you're world class and really own that moat. Yeah. Also, I think what's the other thing I think he should do, and I was thinking about this, like, he could own travel as well, because he's traveling the world.
Right.
And what could like travel tech, for example, look like that's built by him that helps people to connect around the world? Like, he could probably launch his own social media. He's that powerful, right? Like, he's got that potential.
Ooh, that's true.
Think that's where tech will go for him, I think, or tech should go for him in my mind. But yeah, it wouldn't be CPG.
Keep it digital. I see.
Bro.
Because
keep it digital. Keep your sleep.
Because I was thinking for speed, like so I was trying to think a bit around that. And so, like you said, right, he's really like the face of football and content and US, and has that crazy exposure and audience. So I just want you to roast this. Basically, what if, like, you know, Funky Pop, right? I haven't seen like a new type of thing like that where it's a consumable, I guess, toy, but that's like super recognizable as a brand, right? Yeah. So what if like he launched like a sort of, I'll go super left field, like a plushie, right? So yeah, for example, so I have this, right, that I played with my nephew, like a little thing that's like this, and you can kick it around. So I kicked him, like he's like 4 or 5 years old. You came in the face and it doesn't feel anything, right? So it's like imagine that like as a type of soccer ball that you can have at home, but has the face of, you know, him where when he does like this, like that face with the big teeth. So that's super recognizable. But imagine he starts with that as the face of that little football that kids can play, but also like you can just play around to de-stress or whatever as an older audience. And basically he has that as a brand, just like how Funky Pop was for that. He has like that brand. And imagine like, I don't know, like Beast or the Sidemen has that. And after it can be like Marvel or whatever. And that's how I could see a potential billionaire type empire. But curious, your thoughts.
So I would say challenges or threats, right? So you've got Squishmallows, you've got Jellycat, are probably the two, but Squishmallows is probably the biggest. Jellycat's been killing it and doing really well, but they appeal. So Jellycat's more of a female audience. It's also more of a collector audience. Squishmallows is more of a younger audience. His audience is very male. I would be skeptical that the male audience for those products is as high as one would think to really kick it on. That'd be the first thing, because I think it's mainly young girls and teens, and actually even adult women who are like, who have that kind of teddy bear connection and want to relive that as they get older, kind of like grown kids type things. You speak to Jellycat, their big audience is older, not younger. Right? Like people, so that, and it's like TikTok, right? It's gone crazy viral because like it's that comforting teddy bear thing that you have when you're a kid that now you're an adult, and I think that's more female than it is male. So that'd be the first consideration. The second would be production on those things is a freaking nightmare. And like,
so I've heard,
if you have a partner who is good, like you had Squishmallows or you had Funko Pop. So Funko Pop, the collectibles with the mob, like those did really well, but you'd want to almost do it within that infrastructure, because to set up a whole infrastructure to do it is a whole world and challenge in and of itself, to the point we said before around partners and how do you find the right fit, how do you play to your strengths. You want to find almost Funko Pop and say, right, we'll license a new one, because obviously he's also the other bit that his interest, if I was to map him, would be anime, travel, football would be the three. True. So in anime and like that culture, he could probably play a really interesting role. But the way I would do that is him almost co-owning or licensing something like, so you can imagine him as a kind of co-owner investor in what's it called? What's that platform that does all of the, what's it called? It's like an anime Netflix.
Crunchyroll.
So imagine him as like the face of Crunchyroll, or like a part owner of Crunchyroll, and they give him a bunch of equity and he helps to blow that up. That kind of thing is interesting. I think he'd also be interesting for that type of product. But again, I have an allergic reaction to physical products with creators.
So I've seen.
I have an allergy to it. So like, yes, I hear it, but I'd also go, I know what the headaches that are upon anyone who ventures into the world of physical. And I just think it's too much of a headache versus reward. Yes, you can overcome that headache and get there, of course. And all these businesses, I really believe all the businesses we've launched, Sides, Vodka, Best, they will all continue in their trajectory and they'll do incredible things. But it's not so much that they'll be successful. It's that to get to success requires just a different level of grit and time that creators are just not used to that. And I think for someone like Speed, I'd much rather for him see a world where he goes totally into either raising profile from a content perspective to be the number one face of the whole world, which he could probably do. He's probably the most influential person on the planet, one of the most influential people to have ever lived, I would say, in terms of impact and scaled impact. It's like crazy as it sounds, have 36 million followers, to have the level of impact that he has on a personal level, the pull that he has on a personal level is insanely influential, and actually more than most have ever lived, right? If we think about it in terms of numbers and scale that the internet allows us to reach. So how do you harness that to become an even bigger figure? But then also how do you build the brand across those interest areas so you become the face of each of those globally? Because the other bit for him, and also I would keep doing what he's doing around these like travel trips, like the scaling of audience. Every time you do them, you'll just grow more and more and more to the point where you just become, that's the way that you can become, a billionaire, is having that global impact. And then also what I would say for someone like him is he's got his trajectory, keep going, and then when you've hit scale, then you can launch something or do whatever is right at the time. But I would still, for a global audience, physical products and global are another world of headache. Export, import, factories, supply chains, distributors, horrible. Bro, it's horrible. Versus digital, which can reach everybody all at once.
Yeah, like Federer partnered with the On shoes for 3% equity, right? And now it's worth 300 million. Or Under Armour and Steph Curry. That would be his move now.
That's the kind of move.
After create his own stuff.
Go on an equity journey with enough big companies. Have a fund, right? He's made good money. Have a fund where you can reinvest some of that back in, similar to the Sidemen, obviously an upside. Have a good amount of money that he can invest into companies, both as an investor but also as a sweat equity partner. Go on that journey with the biggest people in the world, so you can really rise and lift rather than ambassadorships. Have a combination, but I would say that's the gold star for him. And then the biggest thing is obviously brand deals, which he's got, fine. Building global audience, fine. And then I would say elevating his production so he can, because he's never done produced content. So the minute you could step into the arena of, right now we're going to have a production business and we're going to actually make content that goes out and scales on his YouTube channel, or another channel hits crazy numbers there, of course, as it will, plus then selling in content and formats up to bigger entities. And I think for him, acting, I think he's an amazing actor because he's acting constantly, because that's his character. So him in a scripted show, I think would absolutely kill it. And again, if you think about The Rock and you think about the Kevin Harts of the world, who've hit insane scale. Drewski's another one who will probably go on to be one of the, I could imagine, a comedy actor and do very well as a new sort of Ice Cube type figure, like that kind of figure, coming in from entertainment into acting, and then you actually kick on and build a career in that realm. I think he could do a really good job. I think Speed could do a good job. I think Kai could do a good job in that space too. I know it's been floated a couple of times I've seen, but that'd be my focus. And then when he gets older, then you can settle down, move into CPG or move into products that but it has to be global in scale. And that comes with a ton of headaches that you're never going to learn. You're never going to be able to build a global infrastructure for a brand unless you're world class at doing that, or unless you are incredibly well partnered up. So yeah, that'd be my plan for him. But not that he needs it. He's going to be very successful. He already is incredibly successful.
Nice. Love to hear the insights. I just have 3 rapid fire questions. One is, what's one piece of advice for a small creator when she wants to start a brand?
Biggest advice, as I said earlier, probably will come as no surprise. Find the partner. If you're not world class, find the best partner. speed date.
And when should the creator start?
When you've nailed your core business, and when you've absolutely not stressed or strained out what you're good at, but you've got to the end of what you can do on your own, then you can expand. But I'd say don't launch brands prematurely unless you're launching in wherever you're world class.
Now, if you look at a YouTube channel as a stock, which YouTuber would you bet on today that is not Sidemen?
Speed for sure. I'd say he'd have most. He's like maybe not Tesla stocks now, but Tesla stocks.
He's like yeah.
he's a Microsoft. He's blue chip. I'd say what are your blue chip stocks? Speed for sure. Ryan Trahan for sure.
True. His candy company is crushing.
He's doing well. It's American distribution, man. American distribution.
True.
Walmart top. It's a joke. Like it's next level scale.
His sales are higher than sour strips on Target, which means probably he could sell for over 50 at some point.
For sure. Oh, I mean, but again, American distribution. And also he's got a good brand that sits on its own right, but it's American distribution. It won't be him. I don't believe that will be him. This is an interesting case study. It won't be his audience that's driving that. It's his content expertise that's allowed him to make such great content for the brand's channels. They've allowed that to grow really well, because that's at 700K. You don't get that from someone's fame. You get that through making amazing branded ads, basically. But then also a brand that is agnostic to him and that's well distributed and probably well funded. So yeah, no, he's crushed it. I think that's it. He'll do really well off the back of that, as he shows. He'd be another blue chip. Who else? In the UK, I would say, apart from Sidemen, Chris MD is like probably the best football creator. Oh, two in the UK. John Nellis, who's like probably the best football, football fan creator, because he does more sort of videos with footballers and stuff. And then Chris MD, who's like obviously an amazing football creator. He does football challenge videos. But I think, John Nellis, I mean, he's one of the fastest growing channels in the world. I think he's absolutely crushed it. 10 million subs now. I remember meeting his right hand man, Alex, like a year ago, and they were on like 100K or 200. I know, not a lot. They may be on 1 million, but they weren't. They've just crushed it on such a degree. So he'd be one. That's 4. And then I'm trying to think who else. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously others that I look at and go, like a Bryson DeChambeau, Kai Trump. That's another one I'd invest in.
Oh, okay.
Sounds crazy, Kai Trump, because that engagement level and her obviously like her family fame, and also her ability to sit away from her family politics while still being, it means that she's like a guilt-free it's like a guilt-free pass for people who don't like Trump to consume her content, like, because it's like, well, but she's a granddaughter, it's not really, you know what I mean? So I think in that sense she's one that I think, and she's also very good, she's a very good YouTuber, she's very talented at making videos.
I saw.
So I think she'd be another one. And then obviously you got the goods and the whatever, but I think Kai Trump, John Nellis. I'll do John for this one, because I think Chris, although for sure, but I don't have 2 football creators. Kai Trump, John Nellis, Speed, Ryan Trahan, and then who could also crush it, if they wanted to, is obviously like Kai. If you ever wanted to produce videos on YouTube, that obviously he's always streaming, but like he would obviously do amazingly well. So that'd be maybe another one.
And last question is, you are in an amazing place. What's your dream?
My dream, you know what, man? My dream, I don't really have a dream. I think like I really enjoy what we do. Hopefully it can keep going. Hopefully the Sidemen can stay happy as they are. Hopefully the brands can materialize all this time and effort and money that's gone into them. Hopefully the audience can stay connected. I just hope basically that it can keep going and that everyone can stay motivated and happy, which I think they can. That's kind of my hope, if you will. I wouldn't say it's a dream, because I don't think it's unrealistic, but my hope is that all those things happen. And then I would also say, that we can keep pioneering as best we can into uncharted waters and just doing stuff that people haven't done yet and trying, right? Like, that's what I love about what we do, is I feel like we're kind of pioneering in the sense that we're just trying stuff. We're just giving it a go. And that I really enjoy that feeling of like, no, we've not done this, no one's done this, but let's give it a shot. So if we can keep doing that, and if everyone can stay happy doing it, then I'm happy. That's the dream satisfied from a web perspective, I think.
Well, congrats on all the success, and you guys are gonna kill it. And I really believe the $1 billion empire in the next 5-10 years is definitely possible.
Thank you, man. Yeah, let's see. Need hopefully these painful business models with these brilliant businesses can kind of get through to that point, because I think they all can, but it's a journey for sure. But thank you. Yeah, love it.
Well, thank you for coming on the 1 of 10 podcast.
Anytime.
Guys, click on this video to see the creative genius behind the Sidemen, Tim.